Room E, remote hybrid conferencing meeting is available. This meeting will be broadcast by the county channel. To speak during the legislative committee public comments, please sign up using the public comment form. You can find the Board of Education public comment form on our website, https://www.boofordschools.net/about-us/board-public-comments. You will receive a call during the public comments where you'll be able to speak and address the committee for a maximum, excuse me, of 3 minutes on issues within the committee's domain. The forum will be limited to 15 minutes. Citizens desiring to participate in person must fill out a public comment card that can be obtained from the board clerk upon arrival. The mission of the Beaufort County School District through a personalized learning approach will prepare graduates who compete and succeed in an ever-changing global society and career marketplace. And with that, is there a motion for approval of the agenda?
Make a motion that the agenda is approved with the removal
Of the April.
of the April 11, 2025 committee meeting minutes.
Hi, so a motion? I couldn't hear.
Yes, there was a motion to.
Did you need a
approve
second?
with- Yes, please, Ms. Boatright.
Okay, second. I'm just gonna go shut the door.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Then we'll, Ms. Boatright shutting the door. Ms. Boatright?
Sorry, yes, aye, go ahead. So, I had to shut the door.
Not a problem. Thank you, ma'am. Please join me in standing in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And is statement of media notification due?
Yes,
Okay. Are there public comments?
no,
Okay. Is there a motion for approval of the April 11th? Oh, we don't have those.
right. We just took those
Thank
off.
you. All right, just reiterating what we're trying to do in this committee is to be proactive in search, discover, discuss, and decide. We want to make sure that we as a legislative committee are contributing actively, finding things that affect public schools and other school systems, and be proactive in trying to take steps that will, in a very cooperative way, make things better for the public school systems. So any questions or comments from anyone on board about that? We discussed it several times. Everybody good?
I'm sorry, I have one comment. So one of the things about the proactiveness is a question that I would like to discuss with the committee. Traditionally, the board has directed committees as far as what things they want them to look at. So in this case, the board is directing the committee to it's just to sort of be involved in legislative issues, right? But what I wonder about with being proactive, and I want to specifically say in the draft resolution that is in diligent, it says the Board of Education feels, sorry, I apologize, I don't have the text up right in front of me. But as I recall, we didn't get that from the board. It seems like we are going to be taking that to the board. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yeah, so part of the protocol is that the legislative committee, as we discussed, and let me give you a little context, which many of us know. We had a, what do you call it, representative, who represented us, legal advocate, and we chose to discontinue that because too often we were surprised by what was going on. So we've taken a position that we want to, within ourselves, soliciting information from colleagues, board members, what have you, reading that we can actually identify things that may benefit public schools and take a proactive. So that's the context in which we wanted to use the word proactive. We don't want to be surprised as we work, and we were spending several $1,000s to do that.
And I think that that's perfect. What I did want to point out is that we may not speak or act for the board unless explicitly authorized to do so. So just as we're looking at being proactive, we still need to take directive from the full board.
As a matter of fact, the protocol is that things, and we've checked this with our legal people as well. Just like any other committee goes through this particular committee, we vote in a majority. And if the majority says yes, it moves forward. If they don't, we don't move it forward. We might discuss it, but it doesn't have the imprimatur of saying it has legal standing from the legislative committee. We then will take all types of such type actions to the board as other committees do. And again, they'll go through that exercise of determining whether or not the board in the majority supports that. So to answer your question, which is a very good question, Ms. Boatright, we are very particular and peculiar about making sure we do things within the guidelines of the protocols of the school district.
And when you say protocols, are you referring to our coherent governance protocols?
Coherent governance is one item, but also we want to make sure we are accepting guidance from the board in total. Like sometimes not you, but there'll be, we'll find things that we should do it this way, and we're willing to consider that. But again, not only coherent governance, but their board policies, not only for the administration, but for us. And one of the things we'll have in the future conversation is we need all of our members to actually study the current board policy. So that when we're doing things, we are within protocols. And then there may be room for us to suggest changes. Hope that helps.
And I'm sorry to hang on this topic for just a second, but I'm going to have to get off. I've got a meeting. I could not move at 1:30. When I read the draft resolution of the testing in schools of June, the draft resolution 6/9/2025, it starts out Beaufort County. Huh?
Can we go through the rest of it? Because we're going to get to that pretty quick and we're going to have to.
Sure.
I heard that.
I mean, it follows the conversation, but I'll wait.
Yeah, please wait. We're going to move very quickly. We'll get to that because we have some legal people, Ms. Cartledge, so we want to move forward. But we'll have you out of here by 1:25. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, so we have legislative priorities. Those are included here. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at those?
They've been the same.
So these came from a response, solicitation from all the committee members as to what you think we should be focusing on. Now, what we're looking at is to actually have a session, mentee session. Hopefully it can be at a work session, so it's not rushed, but similar to how the strategy was done. And we cull different items down that we can actually make sure we get everybody's input. So the solicitation is going out several times. You still have time to do it if you have anything to add. So that's our effort. What you'll see in that second point is the items that we have actually supported or received, things that people said we should cover. And then down below, you'll see additional items. And so with that, please keep in mind, if there are any things you feel should be added, we're open to it. Nothing is closed off. Ms. Boatright, so we'll stop there. And do you have any additions or comments on the priorities that have been stated so far?
No, I saw the two that I was concerned about featured there, so I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely, ma'am. Pastor Gordon? Okay,
I'm good.
all right. Colonel Guyer? Master Sergeant?
It's a big negatory. Thank you.
Ms. Cartledge? Attorney Cartledge? Okay, so the main thing is to make sure people understand we're not closing off anything. We are conferring with, make sure we are within constraints of protocols. The other items that were noted below, you'll see some of the participants download apps that make things like that, and testing the public that you'll see in the resolution.
William Smith and Chloe Gordon are both online, as well as Leah Frazier.
Oh, okay. Mr. Smith, comments?
No, I have no problems. I'm in line. I'm in line with what we have going on. I think there's definitely a need, and I just appreciate the work that we're doing to move things forward to help out our district. Thank you.
Ms. Frazier?
No concerns at the moment.
And who's the third person?
Chloe?
Ms. Gordon?
No, she's driving, so she might not be able to unmute.
Okay. Okay. So we will discuss the priorities. We'll schedule that, Colonel, with board session, work session. So there can be good open dialogue about that. Then the just in preliminary discussion on fairness and testing, just to tee this up before we actually go to the resolution, is when we went through and the listed pre-file programs, we saw a lot of things that were recommended and have made progress. Some of those relate to the funding mechanisms that's passed. And I think I think that's pretty much a fait accompli. And we learned in one of our meetings with the School Board Association that the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs is also looking at ways to make sure it's equitable. Not necessarily to change, but at least giving it that review per the General Assembly. So that's the testing fairness idea came from that. And then what you'll see on the last page of what's covered today is the testing mandate for private schools. And at this point, we should call, all right. So one of the emails that we got was that we were writing legislation. We don't write legislation. Not even close. But what we do is try to understand what are the requirements if we are going to move something forward through our system. And of course, as you hear, that's been reaffirmed, the only people that can write a bill is the Legislative Council of the General Assembly. What we have to do, and just like any other committee, you'll see there's a lot of work done by staff who are informed to prepare, make sure it fits all the requirements so that when it's offered, we don't get pushback on it. So with that, is she online? Okay. So with that, what you're looking at is the testing mandate for private schools, and a couple of things I just want to point out. Private, religious, and home schools does not mention charters. Who accepts spending public funds for the educational purposes? At first, people were saying, well, you should say it's all, feedback was, all schools should say it, be required. But you think about it, there may be private schools, home schools, religious schools that say, no, we don't want state money. We're not, and we should not be asking them to take something, because the trigger for this in terms of fairness is that if you're getting state money, we have to do it. So just in terms of fairness, and it would not be fair to say, because you are private, religious, or homeschooling, you too should be tested if you're not getting state money. So that was something that I'm glad we went through this rigorous process to make sure we do that better. The other thing is, you'll notice we talk about the Exceptional South Carolina Educational Trust Scholarship Programs. And we basically are saying, without getting too bold, is that we understand that. So we're not contesting that. That needs to be a distinction that's made. We're not contesting that. The majority in the General Assembly has been overwhelmingly in support, and we need those other options. We're not contesting that. We're just saying that if they're to be compliant with the Constitution, if there's acceptance of public money, then have them be the same standard bearer as we are, and that's it. So that is what this whole resolution was intended to accomplish. So let me stop there. Ms. Boatwright, I know you have to go, ma'am. We promised to have you out by 1:25. Would you like to share
Yes.
your comment?
I would, and I appreciate you letting me kind of skip ahead, and also I apologize for having to leave. What I am wondering about, I think it's an interesting issue in the way that they have this structure, because I think the argument's going to be that the money is not given to the schools, it's given to the students, who can then choose to use it how they choose. So if I'm not sure of all the mechanics, but I believe it is a direct voucher to to a student. So it's not going that I think we're going to have a little bit of a hard time. If I'm correct, I need more research in saying that the states are taking public funding. Because, for example, I think it's 7,000 and something. That's not going to cover most private schools' tuition. It would just like subsidize it. So that's one thing. But the other thing is what I guess I was bringing up from the other part of it is it starts off the resolution says Beaufort County School Board believes that. I don't think we've had that discussion at the full board. And what I worry about with starting from the committee level, that this is what the full board believes without either having a motion or a directive from the board back to the committee, because that's how legislative, I know we're in a different legislative committee environment because we chose not to continue with our lobbyist. So I do think you have a different mandate than previous legislative committees. But previously it'd be like, hey, we want you to take on this issue. So my hesitation is not on this specific issue, but being careful that we do not speak for the full board, that all we can do is make a recommendation. So I think out of this conversation, if it comes out that, yes, the legislative committee is recommending that we draft this resolution, then it goes to the board. And then if the board agrees, it comes in with that language, because I think it's a bad precedent to set to go that way. So to me, it feels a little bit, and I don't think it was intentional, but it feels a little bit like we are speaking for the board. And that is very specifically, not the word prohibitive is too strong. That is very specifically called out in our policy manual. So that's what I kind of wanted to, but I think it's an interesting discussion. I just wouldn't use that terminology right out of the gate.
Yeah, so part of what, as we alluded to we've looked at the protocols. Many things come before a committee and then go to the board for adjudication and a vote. So this goes nowhere if we don't get a majority vote in the committee. It's dead. But
Yes,
if it passes, then it goes before the full board, all 11 members, and they can vote it up or down, just as we do on other major types of efforts.
but it does say that Beaufort, sorry. I can't.
Okay, so I understand, but at that point, if, we can decide that we want to change or what have you, but if this goes before the board and they approve it, then this would actually go before the school board association. So that the school, because very sensitive to us not catching strays because we are so far out in ahead of others. We want to make sure we are under the umbrella of established institutions that I think got about 25 other resolutions that if our board passes it, then they will be the one that will be proffering this and moving it forward. And we can stand in the background and just be, anonymous. We won't be anonymous, but that will change because it won't have Beaufort County School District if the School Board Association accepts it.
And Ms. Elmore's on the phone now.
Okay.
Ms. Boatright, Mr. Smith, and Ms. Frazier.
And
Debbie Elmore with the South County School Board is on the phone with us right now, and she's the legislative liaison for the School Boards Association, works with us. Thank you, Ms. Elmore, for being with us today.
Yeah, Ms. Can she hear us?
Can you hear us?
Can we?
Man, just a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yes. Hi.
We put the speaker up by you.
Okay.
So, we were just discussing the resolution. Mr. Dales will update you.
Yeah, Ms. Elmore, we're here in the legislative committee. We've had some really good conversations so far, some points. And we're to the point where can you tell us it with a preference of a caveat, if it wins here and then it goes to our board and it wins there, can you share how, if we move it to the South Carolina School Board Association, how the School Board Association would represent this and not the individual school district? Can you share with that?
Yes. So we, starting in March, we invite local school boards to submit resolutions to the association for consideration, legislative resolutions. Eventually are voted on by the membership, but these resolutions are what guide your lobbying staff to know whether we oppose or we support or we stay out of, different legislation that's filed. every year at the State House. So we invite local boards that if they have a resolution that we do not have, I mean, we have right now, there's probably about 20 something resolutions that we have, which are available online. The membership votes for these every year. So I guess what you all are considering is a draft proposed resolution that would eventually, if approved, be voted on by the membership to be added to our list of resolutions, legislative resolutions that we have. From my understanding, your process locally at Beaufort County is that you, in order to, because I think Beaufort has proposed other resolutions as well in the past. So apparently you go through a legislative committee, and then the legislative committee then takes their recommendation to the school board. And once that is approved, now it becomes the Beaufort County School Board resolution that they are proposing for SSBA. Then that comes to us, and those resolutions then go to our legislative committee of the Board of Directors, which we've got a meeting scheduled in early July. And then if they approve that, it goes to our full Board of Directors in August. And if that's approved by that body, then it's printed in the Delegate Assembly Handbook that goes out every September, October, and is what is voted on by the Delegate Assembly in December. So that is the process that we use. And that was your question, I hope.
Yes, it was. Any questions or comments on that? Ms. Boatwright, you still with us?
No, Ms. Elmer, and can you explain what happens after the School Boards Association adopts resolutions? How does the legislation get introduced to the General Assembly, and who drafts it?
Okay, yes, thank you. So Wendy, the legislation is separate from a resolution.
Right.
Legislation or a bill, if you will, that is not, we do not draft bills. We do not, we support bills, we oppose bills, we ask for certain bills to be introduced, but those bills are done by legislators. So that's different. All a resolution does is it guides the lobbying staff of the association to know whether or not we're going to support this legislation, whether we're going to this or any other legislation that's filed, and how we approach any bills that are going through the General Assembly.
And those bills would be drafted by the Legislative Council.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, yes, by lawmakers.
Yeah,
We do not draft legislation. We just propose it. We propose it to lawmakers, and then they get it drafted through, I guess, legislative councils typically who they go. The Senate, I believe, they have their own, but either way, yes. But there's a difference between a resolution and a bill.
Right. And we don't draft legislation either. We just work on the resolution part. Send it to you.
Questions? Comment? Everybody comfortable? Ms. Boatwright, you okay now with the protocol process?
So was that directed to me? I'm sorry, I can't hear.
No, it was directed to one of our members, and she had kindly informed us that she's gone. Yeah.
She had to leave one of the members had to leave the meeting.
Okay, so.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No, it's
Apologize.
okay.
She's a key executive in one of our medical institutions, and she had to do some other things. So let's see, Pastor Gordon,
I'm good. She answered everything I had.
Ms. Gordon. Are you okay with what you've heard so far?
She's muted.
Okay. Ms. May is not here. Ms. Boatwright is not here.
You have William Smith and Ms. Frazier on.
Mr. Smith? Are you okay with what you've heard so far, sir?
As well.
Okay.
I'm here and I know it's very informative.
listening.
Okay. Snake.
So the association, how does the school board association decide which resolutions they're gonna pick up and move forward?
Ms. Elmore, can you review that?
So how does it decide which resolutions that it takes to the board? Is that what it?
Yeah, you said the school board association is sitting on something over 20 resolutions right now. How does the school board association decide which resolutions they're gonna offer to the legislative body and hope that legislators pick them up?
So, in terms of the resolutions that we have, again, they're on our website. We vote on them every year. The membership does in December. But in terms of how we choose to take up which resolutions, if a local board, it's the same process you're doing now. The legislature, once your board approves it, or the resolution, and then now it goes to our process, which our legislative committee, again, our legislative committee reviews it just like you are doing now. If they approve it, then it goes to our full board. If our full board approves it, it then goes into the meeting handbook, our annual meeting handbook, as a proposed new resolution that the membership votes on. The membership being the local school boards. In terms of how do we choose which of those resolutions we then submit to the legislature, we provide a copy of all our resolutions to all all lawmakers in the Senate and in the House every year, every January. It's sent to them. Did I answer the question correctly?
Sure.
I don't know, because I didn't quite hear the question, but I think that's what you asked.
Yeah, so when we go there, Mr. Nay, as part of that group, we vote on them. All the people that are there that are qualified to vote, and that's just one of the terms they use. And it doesn't win. And if it doesn't win, it doesn't move forward, and they don't expend any resources in it. So as you can see, as we go through it, about 5 or 6 steps that there's adjudication of, is this what we want the majority, and it moves forward. So those things, a lot of things get weeded out. So that's what we're trying to do.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When the bill is introduced, is it introduced to the House and the Senate at the same time or separate times? Or who gets it first?
Each house, House and Senate will have their own mechanisms. So a bill can be introduced in the House as some were, and then it may not be introduced in the Senate. Senate can then create their own version of the bill. The House can also send their version over, and what do they call it, Ms. Elmore, when the House and the Senate are trying to reconcile a bill, 2 different versions?
Conference committee, their conference committee is appointed.
Can you explain that to myself and Pastor Gordon, please?
Sure. So it can happen. I mean, his original, yes, you can have a bill introduced both in the House and in the Senate at the same time. But what ultimately the chairs of the committee choose to take up, I mean, there are hundreds of bills that are filed every January, hundreds. And even more as the legislative session gets underway, even more bills get filed. But what actually moves is really decided upon by the committee chairman. So there's hundreds of bills that have been sitting there since January and will probably sit there next year as well. I mean, what moves, but once a bill moves and it goes through, say, one body, the House, and changes are usually made there, and then it goes to the Senate, and the Senate, again, has to choose to even take that up. They may not even take it up, but if they do take it up and they make changes, they make it their own, and it's different from the House, then they go to what is called an appointed conference committee. And that committee is the body that goes to work out the differences between what the House passed versus what the Senate passed. And whatever they then determine as the one, except whatever changes, those changes then go back to each body. So it's kind of a long process. Yes, but a bill, has to be, again, a bill has to be introduced by a lawmaker. Lawmaker has to introduce those bills, file those bills and introduce them.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Elmore. Thank you for the question, Pastor Gordon. Mr. Smith, you have your hand. I'm sorry I didn't see you, sir.
Yeah, I apologize. I couldn't get to my mic was acting up, but I was gonna say I didn't have any problems with what you were saying earlier.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Any other questions, comments
Oh,
from anyone?
actually, I just I did want to comment for about the bill when you get a chance to. I just wanted to add something to that that I thought about. If not,
Okay, you-
go ahead and do that.
Do you want to talk about it now?
Yes, sir.
Because otherwise we'll move forward to the vote.
Only thing I was going to say when it comes down to the actual bill, Bill, when you and Ms. Boatwright was talking earlier, I just wanted to bring the attention that anytime that you use government money, then the government you have to show them how you make a utilization of it, and all that is all that's public. So I think everyone taking a test would would actually be the tool to do that. So I just want to bring it up. So I think that this is that this bill would be a great measuring stick for that. That's what I just want to put out there.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any others?
She's still on.
Yes. Oh, Ms. Elmore?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it looks like we're getting ready to go to a vote, ma'am. And unless you have something else for us, we appreciate your time and arranging your schedule to participate and give us some actual guidance. And thank you all.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Have a
Bye-bye.
nice day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to tell you why this is not worth a shit,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Which part?
This whole process. that you
Okay,
just
go ahead.
mentioned.
Go ahead.
I've done this at the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
I've done this with Mitch McConnell's office,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a staff. Mitch McConnell has a staff. He was the Republican leader when I had an earmark that I wanted done. Who wrote that earmark? I wrote the earmark. It went to his chief of staff. Chief of staff put it in, submitted it under McConnell's name, and it got passed. I didn't send him a resolution. I wrote specifically what we needed the money, it was $3.5 million. Specifically what I needed. If you think that our legislators who don't have a staff get a big list of resolutions, that does anything, you are sadly mistaken.
Yeah.
So what has to happen
Mhm.
is our legislative body, if the board says that we want to have this done, our legislative body, our board should go, if the board approves this, should go to the chairman of the Education Committee in the House, Shannon Erickson, and give him the resolution and give them the wording, the draft. Because she's not going to do that. She's not. And if you think she is, you're sadly mistaken. So I like the process, but going up to the state is not going to, because we have in 6 years, we have submitted things to the state, and not one has ever made it into, even been submitted, because we never gave the language that they needed to give to their secretary who copies it down. That's why this whole lobbyist thing to me was a waste of money. Because suppose, really, a good lobbyist would be the one who would write that for you as well. And would have their buddy
Mm.
they know and say, look, this is a good bill and my constituents want this bill.
Okay.
So I like the idea.
Understand?
I also would tell you that the rationale needs something added.
What would you add?
The rationale is parents choose their school based on scores that are published in the papers. When a new person comes in here and they do their due diligence, where am I going to send my child? A good parent
Yeah.
is going to say, I want to see the scores for the schools. Okay. There's no score for the private schools, and there won't be a score for the private schools. But if they get a dime of state money, they should have to publish their scores taking that same test. Otherwise, it's like competition without perfect market knowledge. You need to have perfect market knowledge to make a decision. That's what we're really asking for. Now, it's got to be laid out because it says, as you pointed out very correctly, the money's going to the parent. Okay? And the parent is the one that gives the money to the school. So you have to say that yes, it goes to the parent. But if it goes to a school, that school has to notify the state that they received state money. It's not parents' money anymore. It's state money. They're just a transfer.
Okay.
But if that's not listed in here about why this is important, school choice is the buzzword. Parents want school choice, but the school choice should be based on perfect market knowledge of what the schools produce. Just like you do when you research what you're going to buy. And so that's what the problem with this. This is so key to us. This is absolutely key to us. And we've got to have a good rationale. And that rationale needs to go with the resolution. And I would suggest proposed language for the bill and given to Shannon Erickson. Nope, we could give it to other folks. But what we have the chair of that committee. And as she said, the chair of the committee determines what goes forward. So just, it's frustrating to me because we've spun our wheels on this. This is not the first time.
Yeah. So let me respond to some of your points. This is not going to the legislatures. This is going to the School Board Association.
Yeah, and that's,
So let me finish.
yeah.
Okay. So the School Board Association is a several millions of dollar organization. And they have gotten things passed. And maybe not what we've sent as Beaufort County before, but they have a track record of moving things forward. There's a tremendous amount of lobbying that goes on. To give you a recent example, has this district sent anybody who's had a collection of superintendents and board members to meet with the the superintendent of education, and to give us the reception that me and Mr. Gordon received? I don't think so. So that's the type of thing, because we personally have relationships with elected officials. As this school district before had any representation that goes to the South Carolina Competitiveness Council. And then they invite us to go to their routine, their conference up in Charleston, pro bono. So there has not been this type of outreach. That's what we're trying to just identify that's different. The second thing is, specifically addressing testing was in that. And so it was in that, we softened the messaging around, we're not combating private schools. We're talking equity, which is what you're saying. So we had pushback saying, wow, Shannon Erickson, our entire legislative delegation really is going to push back against that. So we've tried to maneuver around that. So that's already been an edit that wasn't, what you're seeing is not what it initially said. It was much more specific, much more graphic, and much more pointed. But we want to win. We ain't about showing off, right? So that's the other thing. And again, the recipient is the School Board Association. They have a very effective lobbying entity. And the thing that I hear discussed now, and I've been saying this as well, there's 700,000 public school students in the state of South Carolina. If you project and say each student doesn't have two parents, biologically, we know they do. They only have one parent. You have 350, that's 1,050,000 people who are affected by public schools. We haven't done jack shit to get those people motivated and the parents aware of what's happening to your public schools. When we go across those doggone stages and you see all those kids that are in wheelchairs, these other options aren't taking those people. Multilingual learners, only those who are superbly talented in multiple languages. So I agree with you. We're trying to get it across the line. Yeah. And so when it comes to the board, if you would be an advocate for saying we should add those things so that we can do that, or either we vote on that today, I don't have a problem with that. But we think this is the way to go. We have a lot of resources that are behind us this time. And you're not paying $40,000 to get that.
Let me respond.
Sure.
Can I just put in, we had to remember our language, we're being broadcast.
Sorry.
So-
Tell them North Carolina Swamp Dog is speaking.
Let me respond. Yes, they take credit for legislation that gets passed. 3 years ago, I went to a meeting to discuss lobbying by the School Board Association. And this is what was told to us. Tina Guaz and I both attended that. And they said, if you want something passed, you should hire your own legislative lobbyist, because we have too broad a scope. This is no different from what I've seen with other groups like this, associations. Association of the United States Army, Retired Officers Association, and everything. They take money, they have conferences, they submit proposals. And if you check, yes, some of them get there. But if you really go in and look to who submitted it and how it was done, it's not these folks. They take credit for something that just happenstance. Their track record is poor. And you see who actually makes things happen. It's somebody who has their arm around a legislator, and convinces that person that they need to sponsor this bill. So, I will never say anything against it. I wouldn't say anything when she's on
I
there.
understand you do.
I won't say anything in a full board meeting. But in my humble belief, you're spinning your wheels.
May I? Okay, so the thing that is not really said is that it has to be combined with a grassroots effort directed toward those elected officials. So when you went and you gave a wonderful speech at Allen AME, as did Pastor Gordon, we had 15 binders there. We came back and we got a request for 40 additional people that attended. Those are people who had no idea what elected officials were suggesting and who's proposing what. So when you see me bouncing around and others, not just me, I'm trying to catch up to you, but haven't done so yet in terms of how many places you go and attend and what have you. When you see us out there, every time we have a meeting like that and we carry a material, we are converting something. That has to be combined with it. But this is the top, the aerial, but we got to have that ground game. And that's what we've said about being proactive. And your point about changing compensation so that we get remunerated for going, masterstroke. So I'm not disagreeing with your passion about it, just like I have passion, let's get something moving. But I don't think we're at odds on it.
You know,
Fair enough.
it's worth a shot.
Yeah.
But I'll make a bet.
I got some brown pennies. So I heard what you're saying. So do you want us to make a motion?
You have to make a motion
Yeah.
to bring it to the board.
Yeah. No, I'm just talking about the members that are, so
Yes. Yeah.
that's Pastor Gordon. Pastor Gordon, that's you, that's me, that's Gordon. Who else is up there? That's it?
Those are your
Oh,
own
that's
committee
only
members.
three.
Here is, Gordon, Pastor Gordon, so.
So would you like to make a motion? Would you like to frame what you just said, Colonel? So we could incorporate the verbiage?
No, I think
Go with that?
we can.
Okay. Well, I took notes on what you said.
Best of the enemy is the good.
To me, sir.
Excuse me, I heard the conversation coming in, and I listened to both of your points.
Mhm.
And this is where I don't think we have to throw the baby out with bathwater. I think what we can do is possibly, because we've invited, this same body has invited our elected officials here. We've invited them. They hadn't came. They hadn't shown us that they are worth, or that we are worth their attention sometimes. And I don't care who watches this and says this is coming from William Smith's mouth. My feelings, because I make a sacrifice, because what I sign up for, I take very seriously. And all my constituents, remember, no matter who you are, I want to hear what you're saying and understanding what you're saying. And I listen to what you're saying. Right or wrong or indifferent. And by saying that, what are you saying, William? I'm saying that we've given the opportunity on several occasions. We've had legislative breakfast, and a lot of them haven't showed up. So what are you saying? Well, we can do both. They can come out of this committee and we can send it to the school board association. And we can put a copy in each of their hands and say, look here, our board, we stand 100% behind it, or we stand 75% behind it, or the board stand behind it. We put the board vote, even pass or fail, and this is what we want. So I believe we can do both of them, and see which ones give us the best bang for our buck. Point blank, period. I hear what both of you are saying, and I'm also speaking from someone who was the great honorable Reverend Hodges page. So I was in the state house as a page. So I see on both sides. So with that being said, I didn't give them both if this passes at this stage in the game.
Well,
I'll yield there.
I think Colonel Guy did something that was very graceful.
I agree with that.
He participated in the conversation with vigor and clarity and directness, which we like. We're
Right.
not offended by that.
Right.
But at the end, he said, if the committee wants to go forward with this, we can do it.
Right.
Right. So he gave that support, but he didn't, sort of shade the edges on what he truly feels, and I respect that. With that in mind, his points are very valid. So the question for me is, do we move it forward as is? Or do we make a recommendation to edit it now, coming from one of the board members? Or do we sort of move it forward continuously and do the same things he's talking about, which we as a committee have to get engaged with elected officials? I contribute to God and everybody. All right, because when I call, I want them to pick up the dog phone. That's how that game is played. And there only two things matter in terms of just phenomenal change in America: your ballot or your buck. So we ain't voting, and we got to make sure our people know who's doing what in a polite way. That's not attacking our elected official. I'm very good collegial engagements with all of them.
Well, then I would say to the points about adding why this is important in terms of, as you said, about you talking about that, about when we about right about testing.
Parent choice.
Right, a parent choice, so when we can add that to it, because once again, that is something that should catch their attention, because I'm sure that we all want the best and the brightest schools for our children. And so that will show them, oh, hey, this is what I do know, is that this school here has students that are passing and they have higher scores. So that's a much more productive environment I would want my kid in. So I do agree with that. We can add, I think that verbiage would be suffice to be added to let's say to the current draft that we have.
Okay.
That would definitely be
Good
suffice.
point. So we're sort of coalescing at a center point here.
Right.
Okay, so for the committee members, you heard what the colonel said about the testing. That was in the original draft. But I don't want to be contentious, so I stood it back a little bit, right? But that's what we wanted to say. But we left it vague enough so that as it goes to the next level, whoever's gonna craft an actual bill, if it is considered, will be able to add those things. But us making our point clear is also very valid. So between you, Pastor Gordon, Ms. Gordon, either of you got a recommendation?
I've been listening in the car and in here and.
Well, you came to a live one today.
Yes, it's live. It's live. And, I understand about the test scores. I do. But when you look at the children who attend private schools, okay, a lot of that is legacy. My mama went, my grandmama went, my auntie went, my brother. You know, this is a choice that they have made for their children. They're not particularly looking at the test scores because they know that their children, when they apply for a college, they'll get into a college. They're going to get into a college. I know because my two granddaughters attend private schools in Houston, Texas. My oldest granddaughter just graduated from an all-girl private school, and she'll be going to LSU. So she was competing among the best in her test scores and her scores. So as an average parent, when we're looking at sending our kids to school, we're not looking at test scores, guys. That's important to us. But when you live in the Battery Creek area, the May River area, or Beaufort High, you're looking at the area in which your child is going to school and what that school can produce for you as a parent. You're looking at logistics, how to get to school, relationships with teachers. You're looking at the end of the 12 years of that child walking across the stage. Which school is going to give that to you? And along the way, if your child decides to go to college and they have applied, and the guidance counselors and everyone else, including the parents, have done what they need to do, and that child has done what he or she needs to do, then we're looking at a college for that child. I don't think that the majority of the parents that we're talking about here are looking at what college at the end of the day their kid is going to. Will they graduate? Will they be productive citizens? Will they have the means by which they need to be productive? Have our schools given them the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s? Because I'll tell you, I went out to help my daughter with her girls when they were out for the pandemic. I couldn't do that now. I was Googling. Because they don't do math the way we did math. They don't add the way we used to add, people. They don't. Civics is different. Education is changing. It's changing. And we need to change. We need to change. Why are kids going to private schools?
Two different things.
So, why are kids going to public schools? Why do we see them as a contention? You know, they're taking our kids away from us. They're not taking anything away from us. Their parents have made the choice to send them to that particular school. We need to do something better to entice them to come to our school. So I'm saying when we're looking at this legislation, average parent is not going to care that 95% of the students at Well Branch Elementary scored high in English.
What now?
That they scored high in English. The kids at their school parents will care. Some parents may move to that area because of that. But I don't think enough will move to that area for that. I think what we need to build here is a strong educational foundation for our children. So that when parents move here, be it military, be it just because, you know, they used to live here 20 years ago and they came back home, that they want their kids to go to Bluffton High, or they want them to go because this is a very solid school. The foundations are there. Foundations are there. I know last night we were talking about ceilings and replacing the ceilings and things like that. But are we replacing the core education curriculum that our parents can follow to make sure their kids get what they need? So for this, we're just one of 72 schools.
72 districts.
72 districts. Sorry about that. That will be weighing in on this. One of 70.
I don't know how to,
So,
I'm sorry, excuse me.
so what I'm saying is, where's the beef? Remember that? Where's the beef?
Can I say that when parents,
Ms. Frazier, are you finished, Ms. Gordon?
She can go ahead.
Okay, yes, ma'am, Ms. Frazier.
so I'm listening to what Ms. Gordon's saying, and I know for a fact that when parents are looking for a school to put their child in, the first thing they do is go on that state website and look at scores. It really does make an impact on parent choices.
But not
And-
all parents.
Oh, absolutely. That's why the choice program is such a good option for parents. They are choosing to take their kids from one high school to another because of this or because of that. And it is because of the teachers and the reputations of the school as well. And the test scores.
If I could. I deal with the military folks come in here.
Yeah.
That's what they look at, scores. I deal with in the clubs that I belong to, new people coming. Now, I fully agree with your point. For people that have been here and grandma went to Beaufort Academy, grandpa, you know, they're gonna go to Beaufort Academy.
Grassroots.
But they're a small percentage of people that are coming in now
Exactly.
And those people that are coming in now don't know. So as just stated, that's the only way you can judge when you first get here. You can ask your neighbor, or you can go and get some statistics. And I'll tell you that the military folks that I deal with, they look at the statistics. And the new folks that have come in, my neighborhood, know I'm on the school board. Where should I send my kid to school? I said, well, what are you looking for? Are you looking, you wanna, I've got more programs in private schools. If you want an athletic scholarship, you better go to one of the public schools, because you won't get an athletic scholarship from one of the private schools. Do you want to go to an Ivy League school? Do you want to go to the military academy? You better go to Beaufort High. Because
Exactly, but isn't that what we should be pushing, advertising to the parents? Letting them know, telling them.
But you see, when I talked to Shannon Erickson about this, very same thing. I said, Shannon, it's not fair. He said, well, they have test scores. Yes, they do have test scores. They have their private school test scores. They have this test scores that is run by the Catholic diocese. But those tests are not our test. And Frank Rodriguez says all the time, he said, I'll take the Catholic school diagnostic test if so it's one test, but they're not. There's two tests, three tests, because they have to get accredited. And to your point, they have to get accredited. So they have to have some test, but the tests aren't the same. And she said, well, my constituents, I said, well, yeah, the Catholic people are sending them to John Paul and to, the Trinity and other parochial schools are saying that to her. And that's one of the problems we have to overcome. Is it should be one test. Because people do look at that, especially the new people coming in.
But what percentage of those people are looking at that?
And I weigh
Yes.
Beaufort County School District is really a bifurcated district, right? We got, certain demographics in one area and another type of demographics in another. Those parents that have financial wherewithal, they can send their kids anywhere. They look at test scores. And they're hearing test scores from private options and religious options. They're comparing empirically valid test scores that we produce. All we're saying is level the playing field. That's it. The people that I interact with in both sides of the county is if I were in my hometown, it wouldn't matter because the family structure there could be 3 generations in a house. You're gonna get indoctrination from your parents, your grandparents, and they're gonna tell on you if you're not compliant. That's different. Now they look at what type of environment does my kid actually get to learn in. So in addition to testing, which is the first thing hopefully we can look at, all we're asking is that those that accept state money, and that's going to be adjudicated, and I'll give you a little insight, my perspective on that. That can be adjudicated eventually, very, very soon probably, because we have a new composition of the Supreme Court, and the gentleman who voted to oppose the voucher program, educational trust program, termed out. You got a new person who clearly is in support of it. So it will pass if it goes to the court system, right? But what we're trying to do is being able to say, compare us. I mean, very, very stringent, but make sure everybody's sharing the same data. As Colonel Guy is saying, the Iowa test that others use is something I took when I was in school years ago. That's not the national or the federal test the federal or the state test that our kids are taking. So that's what we're just trying to get a level playing field. And we deliberately took out testing but I think the Colonel is right. That's our point that sort of makes people look at the balance. And we're not saying give us some others don't have, we're just saying spread it around so that we can be compared favorably. And not only just the test scores, but the composition of the student body. So look at the percentage of SPED students that our schools have versus privates and religious. So now it's showing, now all of a sudden, a person can look at it and our scores may be lower because they have different population, but at least they can say, oh yeah, they got a heavier lift than, my school does, the one that I want to go to. So that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to do that without basically attacking anybody. So that's why it was needed. But I do agree, testing was really the thrust of it. The title was fairness in testing. So that's what we're trying to do. So with that is from the committee members, or either one of you would like to make a motion for approval of this, I would suggest that we follow Colonel Geyer's point and add something in here on testing. Because I think that's really where it sort of makes it even. This may have been too generic here. Thoughts from the committee members?
I agree with that. Testing, that's definitely something that need to be in it.
Okay.
Cause I know a lot of parents and a lot dealing with people coming, even with my church, coming with people come into this area, right? That's the first thing. Oh, now it's like, oh, you're on the school board. Where do I send my kid? What's the best school though? How do I start the research? So schools, yeah, they're especially for the people that's coming in. Us that have been here is a little different. But people coming in here and now we have more people coming in than a lot. We have a lot of people coming in. This test score is important.
There's another issue on this. Other states have done this. And the data on this is very clear. The data shows that when a state institutes this, that 70 to 90% of the parents that take advantage of this are parents who have kids already enrolled in these private schools. And so basically, you're giving them a discount. You're giving them, instead of paying $12,000 a year, this is looking at paying $7,500. You're giving somebody who can already afford to send them to a private school $7,500 money back. That to me is a subsidy for the rich folks. And I have a problem with that. When I look at that data, the other part, I'll tell you a conversation I had with another legislator, local legislator. And we were talking about this and I said, I believe in school choice. He said, yeah, I do too. I said, but what I don't believe in is de facto segregation. And let's be honest, why is Beaufort Academy there? Oh, it was formed because parents didn't want to send their children to an integrated school. I have a problem with turning it back and saying that we could go back to a segregated school. That's why I told him, I said, I like our relationship with Riverview Charter School, and Riverview Charter School has to have the same demographics as the district as a whole. And that's why they run a lottery. That's why my two grandsons couldn't get into Riverview Charter School over 3 years of trying because they were white. And you know what? I didn't have a problem with that because that's the way it should be. I don't want to go back to de facto segregation. That's why I have this passion for this issue here. I don't want to go back.
So you said add testing back. The Colonel has recommended that each of you have this. And just to make it very brief, can you go down to the fourth line from the bottom, beginning the educational setting?
Educate,
Yeah, it's
fourth line, education.
Educational setting, receive a quality education.
It actually starts with, it's the fourth line, but it starts with equitable application testing requirements.
Right.
And what I would suggest to capture testing, and, of testing requirements and we should state, in my humble opinion, privates and religious, if they, and we've said it before, so we don't have to repeat it, but the intent is so that it's very clear. Equitable application of testing requirements and sharing of student population compositions. So that gets at, if one school has 25% multilingual learners and another has 1%. Now, all of a sudden, that's a heavier load for that population that's 25% multilingual learners, as you saw last night. Not holding aspersions against them, because we gotta teach everybody, right? So that would capture the testing, and let me read it again. Equitable application of testing requirements and sharing of student population composition would promote fairness, provide a uniform measure of academic achievement, and so forth. So I'll read it again just to be true. Everybody see where the line starts with equitable? Yeah. So equitable application of testing requirements would, and sharing of student population compositions would promote fairness, provide a uniform, and then it goes on.
And I would add one phrase.
Okay.
And provide parents data. See, I had it, man, would provide. Would provide parents information to make school choice based on empirical data. That's really what, that's really, if you want to look what the bottom line is, all this whole thing is school choice. And if you don't have the word in there, school choice,
It strengthens it, having it.
it needs to go there. You're making choice based on standardized empirical data.
Do we have that so that we can actually pull it up and
I'm
edit
trying
it?
to see if you had it word, how you sent it to me.
So that everybody can see it, we can tweak it and edit it.
You sent you sent it from your personal computer, didn't you? Email, because it's not showing.
Do you have the document, Ms. Garbage?
I forwarded it, but, need it. Oh, I know.
You can clear by it.
No, I sent it to them. Everything else was sent in. Let's see. Changing by equitable application of testing requirements.
And sharing of student population composition.
Well,
Composition. And then, what, anybody capture what Colonel Guyer said?
will promote fairness, provide a uniform measure of academics, achievement, and data.
Empirical data.
Okay, can you sort of,
Application of testing requirements, sharing student population composition.
would provide data for school choice, I wrote it, would provide data for school choice. Improve, promote fairness, not improve.
Oh.
And then the rest of that sentence.
Fairness, providing uniform. Where are you putting, choice?
Under, okay, so that's part that we first were talking about. Equitable application of testing requirements. And then you would inject the sharing.
Student population
Population
composition
composition,
would provide data for school choice,
yes,
promote fairness, provide uniform and so forth.
yes.
That's what it is up there. I have it up on the screen.
Colonel, take a look at that. Everybody see that?
Equitable application of testing requirements, ensuring student population comes in. Data school choice, more, yeah.
Put a comma after choice.
Good? Good, Ms. Gordon? Ms. Gordon?
Yeah.
Mr. Nate?
I have several comments. I was gonna wait for discussion after the motion and
After the vote?
I mean, when you open the floor for discussion after the vote, I was going to make, or I can make comments now whenever you think it's appropriate.
We'll go through and get the vote if that's okay. Mr. Smith?
Yeah.
Ms. Frazier, you see what's written?
He's gone.
Okay, then what's written here with the edits that have been proposed, but either of you want to make a motion for consideration or approval?
Okay, I just have to make the motion and read. Where it says equitable application, is that how to, how,
The document now, so this is what will be in there.
okay,
make a motion to accept.
oh, I make a motion to accept. Is that it?
Second. All in favor, raise your hand.
Yeah,
Aye. Passes unanimously with those available. Thank you. All right, any other, Mr. Nate?
There's a lot of issues. I think that we're kind of like skirting around. First of all, it appears to me that the resolution kind of assumes that given the choice, everybody would go to private school. That's kind of the feeling I get from it, and that is absolutely not the case. I mean, the school choice funding, we're talking 7,000, 7,500, 8,000, depending on which you know, what you're reading. That's a very small margin of people that we're talking about. Because if you can afford to send your kids to private school, you're sending your kids to private school. If you can't, you're not. There is a very small, very small margin right in the middle that if they have that $7,000 or $7,500, they would consider sending their kids to private school. So I think we're looking at a very small sliver, a very small segment of our society, at least in the state anyways. The other thing is as far as testing goes, test scores do matter to parents. I can tell you that when we came into the area, we looked at test scores. And that's why we settled in the Bluffton area because of River Ridge and May River. But when people want to send their kids to private schools, those people that do want to send their kids to private schools, as Mrs. Gordon pointed out, it's not that important. We have Trinity, we have John Paul II, we have Hilton Head Christian Academy and Cross. People, and those are how many of our private schools we have in the district that are outside of those that aren't religious? 2 or 3, Bridges, and who else?
Well, Bridges is charter.
Charter, sorry.
Hilton Head Prep.
Hilton Head Prep?
Prep. Yeah, there's another one.
The one, well, not in our district, it's outside of our district.
Okay, so as a school board, this is what we should be concerned about. What's in our purview, what's in our area of responsibility, so to speak. I can tell you the people that are sending their kids to these Christian-based private schools because they want a Christian lifestyle for their child. And I can tell you a lot of them is because they're disappointed with the discipline in public schools. I say that to say, if this resolution was powerful enough, I think as a school and a board or a committee and a board, it should be able to stand on its own. Instead of having to massage it, words here, put the verbiage in there, add, make sure we define this. I mean, if it's powerful enough that the House or the Senate or the School Board Association or anybody outside of our board want to take it up, then they'll take it up. I mean, if it was a powerful enough message, I'm sure there are other people out there saying it. With this, we can't be the only school board that is concerned about school choice and funding for private schools coming from taxpayers. I refuse to believe that we're the only school board fighting about this. But if it was important enough, we would know about it on at least a state, if not a national level. The other thing I'm concerned about is there's a lot of disagreement on the board between all of this. I made it out of committee. I'm not real sure it's going to go past the board much because I mean, the board did not direct the committee to do this. Ms. Mowbray has a point about that. There's disagreement about the method of how we do it. Do we take it straight to the House or in the Senate, or we take it through the School Board Association? So there was disagreement about that. Okay, can we do both? I get that. But Mr. Dallas, I don't mean to call you out or anything, but you are the first district representative of the School Board Association. So if we're going to take it to that, it seems like you being the chair of the legislative committee and being a part of the School Board Association as a voting member, as the first district chairman, that seems like there's some conflict of interest there. If we're going to take this to go to the School Board Association, because are you acting on their behalf or are you acting on our behalf? Because the school board did not direct you to do this. But so are you doing this on behalf of the School Board Association or on behalf of the board? So I don't know.
I'll answer when you finish.
Okay, but all those things are out there floating around. So I'm not real sure that we're ready for this to leave the school board, much less take it to the School Board Association or directly to our state delegates.
I appreciate that. So I'm acting as the legislative committee chair, which from almost day one, we stated we wanted to be proactive and defend public schools. We said that ad nauseam, and that's all this is. I can vote on this, or some other district can bring this forward, and I could vote on it, so that the district representative, I get a say in it when it comes up. I don't have to recuse myself. But hearing about school districts, because test scores are used against us. We've lost what, right, 450 students from last year to this year? And what people sort of point out to us, what I've been saying, and you've heard it subtly, is discipline. We have to get more constringent on discipline, because that is an Achilles heel. And again, the others don't have that same option. So we got to figure out how to do it without pushing kids off and not giving them the best chance. So one, no, I don't have to recuse myself. Everything, I try to do is to make sure it's within policy, procedures, protocols. No one has ever laid a claim against me for anything that's not behavior.
I'm not laying a claim.
I know. But I'm just saying, I want to make sure that's out there because others are saying it. And I hear it. I have people in the community as well, and they tell me, call me, here's what's going on, et cetera. So I respect you, and you know that. So I'm glad that you shared that. But we got to level the playing field, because that people are using our information against us, and we can't use anything against them. That's all this.
Let me just say, I think it was last year or my first year on the board. I was on the legislative committee. We did absolutely nothing.
Yep.
We did nothing. I think we met, I don't remember. But as far as having meaningful dialogue, looking at issues to bring before the board, before the community, looking at legislation that was going forward, we did nothing. We did absolutely nothing. So, this year, was an opportunity to look at, this legislation and, legislation in education. And we're educators. We are board members of an educational entity. And we can't fix everything. No. We're gonna miss some things, yes. And we don't agree on all the things, school. But at least if we can get some footing on what is gonna serve our students and their parents, to make the best decisions that they can make. And sending their kids to our schools, their schools, I don't care what school. As long as the kids get a very good education. And that our leaders that have been elected are doing the very best that they can to do that. So I appreciate what Mr. Carlson is bringing.
Collectively.
Collectively. No, I'm just saying, because you will call me and remind me that we have a meeting and these are things that we're looking at. I'm just saying, have a better understanding of where I am on this committee and that I can say these things and Mr. Nate can say what he feels. I do not feel that there's a double-edged sword here, that you have to be careful about what you say to us. But I do, and I did hear what Ms. Boatwright said earlier, and making sure that we are not speaking for the board, but we're going to take things back to the board. And that was very important for me to hear her say that, and for us to be, reminded that we're committed, and we're making suggestions or to the board and to our constituents, and we're, I think, as best we can, saying what they want to hear us say, and then filling that out and trying to do the best that we can. So I hear you, Mr. Nay. I appreciate it, and Mr. Carlson. But I think that this, for me, the last 2 years, this is the most I have seen us do.
Last 6
with
years,
this
we
committee.
never, I have this kind of conversation.
Well, this is the best, this is the best,
Best.
this is the best conversation in terms of legislation committee we've had the deepest, and
Yes.
at this meeting here was, I was gonna say, well, yeah, I was gonna say that this, I think that this meeting here was even more in depth in terms of the educational process than than even some of our board members. I mean, because we talk about a lot, we talked about a lot here, a lot of emotions. You can tell a lot of people have a lot of interest in what we're talking about, and for us to be a committee level meeting, and for it to bring out as much people as it did, and to go in depth of things, and in depth of the things that were said today. It shows that everyone has a passion in this business, or and definitely when they went to have their side heard. But there was just a couple things that I wanted to address. Actually, from me, I'm sure Colonel Guy has probably heard it too. Actually, that's not true in terms of, and I will make it a different, in terms of people talking about it not being fair, and actually the state board association sent out letters and had us calling our legislators. I don't remember the board then, when it first was coming about, the money being given to charter and public school entities. We had a whole meeting draft the day, I think it might have been a day at the state capitol, around about the seriousness and the severity of how it's going to impact public school education in its full totality. So that came from the association. That came from several boards, because several boards even emailed and talked to me. I also said on the caucus. I also said the caucus. That was a conversation in the caucus, and during the meeting in the halls. If you go to these, that's why it's important to go to these conferences when we have them, because these are things that have been discussed, and these are things that are being discussed. Wherever you're walking in the hall, wherever you're at dinner, wherever you're downtown, wherever you're downstairs talking, passing each other. Hey, what do you got? How's that going to affect y'all? How big are y'all? Lady from Hampton County, how's that going to affect y'all when they start giving out those public dollars? So this conversation has been at the forefront of public schools for the last couple of years now. This has been a big ball with a target on it. And this has been the conversation everyone is having. Some people may not have it because it doesn't affect them in their family or their area, versus some more than others. But this has been an ongoing conversation. So there's no way, and it's kind of far-fetched to say it's one person, because that's not true. If you check your emails, they still send different things here and there about this. I mean, about that. And then also the behavior stuff that's being talked about. So I don't know if you, once again, I don't know if you're some of y'all new people on the board yet. I'm not sure about y'all too, but anyways, we did change the matrix and we did have a strict matrix policy of behavior. The state came in and told us, hey, listen, you have to do this step, and that step first. You can't just put kids out of that. So we got spanked for that. And if I'm wrong, I can be corrected. But I remember it's because the board, we had this on the dice before. So it's not, once again, we're talking about publics and we're talking about charter. Yes, some charter schools and some schools still spank students. We can't do that. We cannot put our hands on students, or they have different ways of how they deal with students. So once again, their matrix of how they suspend students and how they discipline students is different from our matrix. So there's some of those institutions can do things differently than how we do things. And we was told you cannot do that, and you have to change this, you have to change this, you have to change that. And you look at the levels from the state of what a student can really do, even in terms of pulling the fire alarm. That is a different level upon level 1 and level 2 that may put a kid directly out of the school, versus saying, hey, this is a level 1 or this is a level 2 offense where you go home because you pull the fire alarm. So I just say that to give a little insight to people who are listening, or to my colleagues, to understand that, listen, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we all understand that. But there are different protocols, and there are some things that have been done that sometimes you have to put your research in it and go check up on, or ask. Let's have conversations about it. If people want to have conversations, hey, I'm not hard to find. I'm always open. I'm always willing. So that's just some food for thought when we start, allowing people to say things that that they aren't sure. Let's just check with each other and understand what's what, and let's help each other out, because this was a great meeting of everyone in this room. I appreciate everyone's input. I think it was all good. It was good, healthy conversation. Some stuff I look now to. I may need to go research that I've heard, but I appreciate it. And I thank each and every one of y'all. But I just want to put some of those. I just want to put different perspectives on some of those things out there. And then if I said internal garbage, please correct me. But I do believe that those two things for sure that maybe you can attest.
Yeah, you're right. That was an instance where we did make a temporary fix on the funding thing.
Right.
And that everybody was energized.
Right.
And we did get the funding temporarily stopped, because they were going to pull more state funds away from us.
Correct.
And so that did work. But I'll tell you, you're right. They had the Superintendent's Association, and we all called and everything else. And so I will grant that that happened.
And in fact, I think that's the most, I think that's the most we ever did hear from that, from the what lady who we hired?
Yeah,
That's the most we had heard from the lobbyists at that time. Hey, call, and I believe it right there.
I just want to say one thing. I really appreciate Roderick. The whole conversation like we just have, it's like a marriage. It's a relationship. You gotta know to be honest, and the relationship is not shattered.
True.
And that's built over time. And we've had a lot of conversations. We've done things together. And the Colonel said something to me a few days ago when I was complimenting the interactions among the board. We can have very different points of view, but we express them and we move on. And that is, he mentioned that, I think you said we have a very collegial board, very collegial board. So we actually joke and laugh and play with each other. That happens. And that means whenever I get too passionate and just along those lines, to use military term, Colonel Guy and Master Sergeant Dale are gonna probably send me to the bridge.
Oh, no, I take it to the sand pit.
That sounds bad.
That's outside.
But it is so rewarding.
The sugar.
It's so rewarding to me that we can have those conversations and you all know, you said what you felt, it's not held against you. Best performing teams are high, there's a high trust level. So thank you all. So with that, is there anything else? If not, I have two comments. Discipline is an issue. It
Okay.
really is, and a competitive issue. And what I heard last night really hit my radar when they were talking about AVID and how the discipline, the discipline, thank you, the discipline problem went down and those kids were better engaged. So it's not just punitive discipline. It's about how do we get these kids engaged so that they pay attention and they want to excel. That's critically important.
Oh, yes.
So the other thing, longer term and very sensitive, but the 29 months or 30 months I've been on the board, one of the things I have really researched is family structure and the impact on academic performance of kids that are brought up in various family structures. And we got to figure out a way to inform parents, like Parents as Teachers program. If you haven't been out there, please go and see what they're doing. We've had 2 teachers win national awards for it. All you got to do is go to Ladies Out Middle School, that little house right there by the color.
Pink house.
Pink-
The pink house, about the pink house.
Pink house, pink house, and talk to them and talk and have them share with you what they do and how they do it. It is phenomenal. And third thing is when you have an advantage, you got to promote your advantage. You cannot be afraid to engage because you're going to get someone else PO'd. You know, you just got to be comfortable doing that. All right. So with that, any comments from any of you further?
The next meeting is scheduled for August 13th at 1 o'clock. August, no meeting in July. So the next meeting will be scheduled for August 13th.
Okay. Anything else? Who's on the fly?
Nobody else is on.
Okay. All right, well, unless there is something further to be discussed for the good of the order, we are dismissed. Thanks, everybody. Great group of people.